How could we ignore a character that has such high standards for personal grooming? Get our drift. I mean, if I could groom myself like that, I'd never leave the house, am I right? But that's exactly what Sheline was doing shortly before she was decommissioned in Season 5, Episode 7 of The Boys. This cat-themed Supe has been portrayed as a typical airheaded blonde, but underneath her vanity and the QR code tatted on her arm, there's a physiological structure that's as unique as her flexibility. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the anatomy of Sheline, whose ninth life seems to have run out a little sooner than it should have. Let's get into it. What exactly did Compound V build inside her, and is this actually still a human body? Every human body injected with Compound V changes on a fundamental genetic level. This change is most stable in the blastocyst stage, so that's when Vought tries to get its hands on babies. The offer is simple: inject them with their patented formula, and they'll be bestowed with divine abilities that the parents can then monetize forever in a day. Hell, they can tell their kids that they've been blessed by God, because that's the kind of power V has the potential to give to children who take it. And in most cases, the foundational psychology of these babies remains mostly human. Even in characters like Rockhard and the Deep, their functionality as a person isn't altered that much by their V-induced mutations. Well, not for Deep at least, considering he's the fishman and he can still breathe on land. Rockhard encases himself in a throne of his own volcanic jizz, so make of that what you will, but the actual human element that makes them people never changes, which unfortunately isn't the case for Sheline. For all intents and purposes, Sheline looks and talks like a person, but beneath the surface, she's not human anymore, at least not in the truest sense. That's because Compound V altered her genetic code to give her a feline physiology, and this change goes deeper than growing fur and a tail. Because Sheline was injected shortly after her birth, her body was still developing its core biological structures and processes. Cellular generation, tissue structures, organ development, sensory development, all of it was in nascent stages when the V turned her feline. So, those organs and structures and cells didn't develop and mature they would have in a human being. They developed and matured in the way they would have in a cat. All humans are born with roughly 300 bones, many of which are cartilage. Over time, these bones fuse with each other and harden to become the 206 bones that are usually found in an adult human, but cats can have 230 bones in their bodies, with many of the extra bones being found in the vertebral column. This makes them extra flexible and capable of performing feats like the one we referred to at the beginning of this video. Sheline's skeletal structure might look human, but she has more bones in it, like a cat, and that's why her body can't even be considered truly human anymore. It developed like a feline's as she grew up, and that's the basis for the rest of this video. How do her claws actually work, and what can they do to another Supe's body? Although she's based on Catwoman, Sheline has neither the grace nor the thievery skills of Selina Kyle. The character of Catwoman was inspired by the concept of cat burglary, but Sheline is a literal cat in a woman's body. Selina Kyle uses weapons and equipment to commit crimes and fight her enemies, but Sheline uses her natural feline physiology to do the same, although she does believe that justice is styled, not served, so we don't know how much fighting she actually gets into. Still, when she does find herself in a situation where self-defense or offense is required, Sheline comes equipped with natural weapons in the form of her claw-like nails. Cats possess 18 razor-sharp claws, can cut through meat and fish like nobody's business. They usually keep these claws retracted to protect them from general wear and tear and preserve their natural sharpness. Sheline doesn't seem to have the retraction feature in her hands because we never see her nails pop out or go in, but they are sharp enough to do exactly what cat claws do, whether her enemies are humans or even Supes. In fact, Sheline's biggest claim to fame right now is that she went toe-to-toe with Kimiko and came out smelling like roses. She was not only able to scratch Kimiko's flesh with her cat claws, she actually drew blood from Kimiko's reinforced regenerative tissue. We've seen her tearing the meat off many human beings besides her. Kimiko took a longer time than usual to regenerate that damage too, and moreover, she found it difficult to hit Sheline. That's because Sheline has cat-like reflexes, and that isn't just a gimmick. Cats possess exceptional lightning-fast reflexes with an average reaction time of 20 to 70 milliseconds. This is significantly faster than the 150 to 300 milliseconds humans typically require to react, and this forms the basis for Sheline's dodge and duck strategy. She might not be formally trained in martial arts, but she doesn't need to because her feline physiology has an inbuilt offense and defense system. A cat's agility is driven by their highly developed senses, their flexible spine, and a specialized vestibular apparatus for balancing, which basically means that Sheline was built for agile, claw-based combat from the ground up. If she can slash Kimiko's flesh open, she can do it to most Supes who aren't on Homelander's level, which is quite impressive, considering all Supes have reinforced tissue and skeletal structures as well as musculature. And believe it or not, this isn't even her most impressive ability. Can she actually see in the dark? And what does feline vision mean for how she hunts targets? While Sheline's skull doesn't seem to have larger eye sockets to accommodate larger eyes, the show does imply that her entire physiology is feline. This means that her eyes might be human-sized and not slitted, but they still possess the density of rod cells that allows cats to see clearly in 1/6 of the usual amount of light required for functional human sight. Cats can also perceive ultraviolet rays, which is what makes them such exceptional stealth hunters, especially at night. Cats essentially possess night vision, and that explains why Homelander decided to use Sheline and the teenage Kicks for surveillance and detention, as opposed to deploying them on the front lines. Sheline's visual spectrum allows her to detect micro movements within her immediate environment, considering cats have a 200-degree field of vision, and her night sight makes targeting starlighters that flee through the night that much easier. Cat eyes are also short-sighted and dichromatic, meaning they can only see clearly when things are closer to their eyes, and they can't see certain colors. These aren't issues that plague Sheline as far as we can tell, because if they did, she wouldn't be able to scroll through Instagram without losing her damn mind. She also sees targets far away from her just fine, which is an advantage when it comes to stealth-based tracking, and the fact that her eyes lack the layer of tissue behind a cat's retina that makes their eyes glow in the dark is also a blessing in disguise. Otherwise, people would spot her coming a mile away, and she's been quite successful at rounding those same people up and sending them off to freedom camps. Sheline essentially has the sensory toolkit of a high-level predator, and what are styliders to extremist Supes if not prey? But while cats make up for their comparative lack of sight with other senses, Sheline doesn't have to, which means they're enhancements made to her base human physiology, not compensatory mechanisms. What does her superhuman hearing and smell actually do to her, and why is it as much a vulnerability as a power? All Supes have a much stronger sensory baseline than humans, but Sheline's hearing and sense of smell might be higher than any other Supes, barring Dognaught. Cats have a larger quantity of olfactory tissue and receptor neurons than regular humans. Their tissues are approximately twice the size of a person's, and they possess more than 4 times the number of receptors that we do. They even have smell tissue embedded in the roof of their mouths, which is why when a cat leaves its mouth gaping, it isn't so much yawning as it is sensing food or territorial markers. We got a rather disgusting display of this in episode 7, when Dognaught and Sheline smelled each other's butts and accurately predicted what each other had for lunch. Keeping that kink aside, Sheline's hearing might also be amplified well beyond baseline Supe hearing, because cats can hear frequencies humans cannot, and their hearing apparatus is 9 to 16 times stronger than a person's. This means that a tiny amount of noise could give away your position if you're anywhere within Sheline's range of hearing, unless she's, focused on smelling butts. But both of these abilities are as much of a liability as they are assets, because it means that they can be overwhelmed just as easily. Sharp smells in a relatively odorless environment and micro movements that give away people's positions is likely what aided her Starlighter Roundup campaign, but flood her nose or ears with intense smells or sounds and she'll be paralyzed. In fact, we've seen what sonic weapons do to regular Supes, and they might just prove to be lethal against a girl like Sheline. So not every feature of her feline physiology is an asset. Sometimes a blessing is a curse as well, and this brings us to a rather interesting point about her physiology. She can match Kimiko in strength, so why does a regular human knock her to the ground with one punch? A cat's physiology is built for grace and survival in extreme conditions. The idea that cats have 9 lives stems from the fact that they can fall from large heights and remain relatively unscathed. This is thanks to their specialized vestibular apparatus, which allows them to readjust their bodies during a fall and land on their toes, which is what they use to walk. This apparatus also allows them to leap great distances and walk without making much noise, but another factor that makes cats so resilient to fall damage or blunt force trauma is the fact that they possess loose skin, which evenly distributes impact across their bodies. We see this play out in real time when Sheline fights Kimiko and tanks all her close-fisted attacks and actually overpowers her and puts her in a chokehold. Those punches and kicks are effectively absorbed by Sheline's feline physiology, and the fact that her human appearance doesn't look or feel saggy, despite her naturally flexible skin, is actually quite an achievement for her beautician. She also has your standard enhanced Supe durability, which means that she can take most hits without feeling them, but Sheline's durability doesn't seem to be one of the aspects of her physiology that Compound V bothered to reinforce meticulously. The V went all in on making her body more cat-like, which means it gave her cat-like weaknesses as well. When a cat fights, it doesn't need to protect itself from punches, it needs to look out for claws and teeth, because those can puncture or slash through flesh regardless of its looseness. looseness. And Sheline doesn't have the kind of reinforced tissue structure that Homelander and Starlight do because MM shoots her in episode 7 and the bullet grazes her skin, putting it up. So while her baseline strength and agility might have been enhanced twice over by the V and her particular brand of mutation, her durability took a massive hit, and getting shot knocked her off balance long enough to allow MM to knuckle punch her lights out. That was a more intense punch, concentrated on a vulnerable area, compared to Kimiko's wilder, more feral fighting style, and in the comics, MM was a heavyweight boxing champion, so he'd know exactly where and how to punch somebody to knock them on their ass. This is where things get dicey for Sheline because despite her advanced feline features making her the ideal Starlighter hunter, it also makes her prey to such common human elements. Why does she chase laser pointers, use a litter box, and eat live crows? Is this Compound V, or is this just who she is now? Despite her human appearance, Sheline's fundamental instincts aren't human anymore, and that's the biggest change Compound V introduced to her physiology. We might think that using a litter box, eating crows and rats, and chasing a laser pointer for hours are personality quirks, but they're physiological responses that trigger a cat's natural hunting instinct. Let's start with the litter box, because while it's objectively disgusting for a human being to keep their poop unflushed, for a cat, it's base instinct. In nature, cats cover up their excrement by burying it under soil so its nature scent doesn't give away their location to predators. Sheline's toilet habits seem to be influenced by this aspect of her feline mutation because she might not be prey, but her nervous system and her digestive tract have evolved to think like a cat when it comes to fundamental physiological processes. Litter boxes simulate nature for cats because it allows them to dispose of their excrement and then quote-unquote bury it, and the mental image of Sheline doing that with her own poop is disturbing enough, but not as disturbing as what comes next. Cats don't chase laser pointers because they're stupid or stupidly fascinated with red or green moving dots. They do it because their highly specialized rod cells identify the tiny spots of light and their fast movement as prey moving at rapid speeds within their vicinity. If you've ever wondered why a cat looks so confused when it actually catches a laser dot, this is the reason. Their eyes saw movement consistent with prey and activated their hunting instinct, but when they got to said prey, they found nothing there. This makes Jetstream's comment about making Sheline chase a laser pointer for hours more cruel than hilarious because what he did was mess with the way she's wired. And the way she's wired is thanks to Compound V, which brings us to her eating Countess Crow's crows and why a rat proved to be her downfall. Cats chase small prey instinctively because that's the only kind of prey they can effectively kill and devour. This primarily includes birds and mice, and the desire to hunt both kinds of creatures isn't a controllable one, it's a natural hunting instinct because however cute you might think your cat is, it's still a predator at the end of the day. It'll go after pigeons and rats regardless of what you might think of them because centuries of evolution has conditioned them to see such creatures as nothing more than food sources. So when Sheline ate Countess Crow's crows, it wasn't personal, it was her feline physiology kicking into overdrive and temporarily shutting down her human rationality. This also leads to her defeat in episode 7 because despite knowing damn well that she's in a life or death situation, Sheline spots a rat and just has to eat it. Now granted, her feline physiology is given one last moment in the sun here. The reason she's able to bite that rat's head off so easily isn't just super strength, it's also the fact that cat skulls and jaws are specifically built to deliver massive amounts of bite force, enough to do exactly what she did to that rat. And yes, her hacking up hairballs after eating crows or rats is also thanks to her feline digestive system, which is specialized to allow cats to consume raw meat, fur and all, and remain unaffected. But this natural instinct is what knocks her off her game long enough for MM to close in on her, and the fact that he uses water to destabilize her is more of a running joke than a physiological fact. It's a common belief that cats hate water, but that's not entirely accurate. Cats are used to dry, arid environments, and they usually clean themselves with their specialized tongues the way Sheline was doing before Dognot walked in on her. They do take baths occasionally, and need water to survive, so MM throwing water at Sheline and her screaming she's a cat is a comedic bit more than anything else, but the rest of what we said is all pure physiology, which is why we questioned whether doing such things is a V-induced trait or whether it's just who she is now. The answer is a little bit of both, because the V is the reason she's the way she is, and the way she is feline to the bone. But this also brings us to the final point about Sheline's physiology, which is, What actually kills her, and why is a Supe with her power level this fragile to the right threat? You might think that the Supe-killing virus is what got Sheline in the end, but that's not quite true. That's because the symptoms she displays upon her death are demonstrably different from the symptoms the Supe virus causes. Her skin doesn't blister or redden, she doesn't start leaking blood or black goo from her orifices, she isn't in excruciating pain that blows her body apart, and most importantly, if this was the Supe virus, Dognaught would have gone through the exact same thing as would Annie. What kills Sheline is a drug overdose, specifically a tranquilizer overdose, because when the boys arrived at Vought Studios, their target wasn't her or Dognaught, their target was Oh Father. We saw the boys loading up injections with some kind of chemical, but if this was the Supe virus, they'd be acting a lot less cavalier with it. Plus, when MM injects Sheline, he puts all 4 doses he had on him inside her, which is easier to do considering she has loose skin. The effects of the drug are immediate and lethal. Sheline falls on the floor and starts foaming at the mouth, classic sign of an overdose. And judging by the way she was convulsing, we'd say that her natural metabolism was also one of the things that Compound V failed to accelerate. If it had, she might have survived the overdose because there are several Supes in the boys who regularly consume harder drugs in lethal quantities, and they seem to be doing just fine. So yes, while Sheline might have been at the ground floor for enhanced cellular regeneration, improved circulation, and strengthened physical structures, her feline mutations overwrote them in a way that proved lethal in the end. And it turns out, not all cats have 9 lives after all. But as for her anatomy, that's all we got for you guys, and we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts on Sheline in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content from the Boysverse. We'll see you guys real soon with yet another video, so until then, stay safe and have a cat-tastic day.